Is it true that most of this stuff is coming across the border through ports of entry rather than across the deserts and that sort of thing? That it's actually coming through ports of entry because they can only check like 8% of the people that come through legitimate ports of entry. They just don't have the ability to check every person, every vehicle, every bag that comes through a port of entry.
So it's a complex answer, but let me just make sure it's clear. When we talk about cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl, the majority is coming through the port of entry, in my opinion, because we have massive tractor trailers, we have cars, we have so much traffic and not enough resources, maybe not enough technology. But let's keep in mind, over the last 4 years, a lot of these brave men and women, patriots that are at the POEs, they're working on babysitting. They were working on administrative duties instead of doing their job to keep Americans safe. That's what they all signed up for. Now, in between the ports of entry, you also have, as you've heard the term, flooding the zone. So the cartels would escort hundreds of people to one border patrol checkpoint. Then they would flood the zone with the people, and then they go like a mile down the river or wherever it is and get the people in. They escort them in at a very high price. But when it comes to the new substances that we spoke about, like the nitazenes and isonitazenes and all that other very powerful stuff, I believe, and I haven't seen intelligence where the cartels are the ones pushing that, into the country. I believe this is a campaign started in the illicit labs in China, and most of that stuff is coming in like it was initially with the fentanyl. But that intelligence is going to come out soon. But I think the trend is let's sell the stuff right from China to the purchasers in America. And that's kind of what I see. But to answer your question, yeah, it's common sense. When you have hundreds and hundreds of tractor trailers with compartments, with produce and everything, they're coming in and they have the drugs secreted in these vehicles. But that doesn't mean it's not coming in between the ports of entries, because we know it is. And it's coming in at the ports. It's coming in on boats. It's coming in on planes. It's coming in cargo. It's like they're overloading us because they're trying to maximize profits.
Maybe it's the conspiracy theorist in me, but is there more to this than just the business aspect? Because I'm wondering, as many Americans as this stuff is highly addictive, it can also be highly lethal, but it's so highly addictive. And I guess the conspiracy theorist in me wants to ask the question, from China's standpoint, this clearly is a multi-billion-dollar business, but are they also addicting America? Is this part of a plan to really get so many Americans addicted to drugs? You see it in San Francisco, you see it in Chicago, you see it in some of the major metropolitan areas. This stuff has such bad side effects, cognitively, liver-wise. It ruins people's health. It ruins their ability to think, motivate, sleep. We got a bunch of zombies stumbling around. It seems like they're trying to addict the American public, sedate the American public, and really undermine the American public.
Dr. Phil, you're right on point. It's a strategic exploitation of U.S. weaknesses and vulnerabilities. The goal is to destabilize and undermine the country. They're destroying the future generation with chemicals made in these illicit labs. It's a very, very effective strategic action, wiping out more Americans than any terrorist organization in the history of this country, and many wars that we've had since the World War II. Like, my brother came back in a body bag out of Afghanistan. And if you added up Afghanistan, Iraq, and all these other wars, it wouldn't come close to the amount of Americans killed with fentanyl. But let me highlight this, Dr. Phil, because this is the latest. This is what I received from families last week. This is a T-shirt of the babies that are dying. These aren't drug users. These are not kids that are out there taking pills. They're walking and crawling in locations and they're dead. And now the families are so desperate, they're sending me T-shirts so we can wear it around. You see that little boy in the back? That's a 1-year-old Dominican boy that went to the daycare center in New York City. And this kid died, and the woman that was running the daycare center Instead of calling 911 when 4 children went down in the daycare center, she called her husband to get the stash of fentanyl out of the trap location that they had in the daycare. But the point is that the Chinese criminal networks have deliberately designed this. And by the way, they also, like I said, with the money laundering, if you don't have the money and you don't have the chemicals, you can't kill our citizens like this. So they're very smart, and shame on America for not connecting the dots many years ago. But guys like you, the first time you heard this story, you immediately understood it because it's basically common sense, Dr. Phil. As you know, this is not very difficult to understand when you look at the tragedies and the horrendous impact to our country. This is very, very sad. And that's why I'm very passionate because, look, my job now is to give back to America. I had a great career in law enforcement. I'm very proud of it. And the men and women of the DEA and Homeland Security and FBI and everyone else, they're doing a good job. But this problem is so much greater than law enforcement. That's why I'm very happy to see the whole of government with the DOD, and I'm happy to see the intel community all coming together and the kinetic strikes of 4 boats now off the coast of Venezuela. Hopefully, this is going to start changing the mindset of people. But you know what? What's sad is now all these people coming out of the woodwork saying, like, why are we using kinetic strikes? Well, if Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS was using chemicals to kill our countries and our citizens in our country, what would we do? Would we sit back and let it happen, or we'd go out on the offensive? So thank you, Secretary of War, President Trump, and the administration for actually putting Americans first.
It seems to me that we've got to get everybody behind this. And if people will acknowledge what's happening here, that China is waging war against America here. This is chemical warfare. Now, clearly, President Trump has closed the border. The border is shut down. So that's a big step in the right direction. These precursors that are getting to the cartels to make the fentanyl, some of these precursors are coming into Canada. Some of them are coming into the United States, but they're being manufactured in China. How are they getting into the United States with the border being closed, the southern border being closed?
So there's a lot of ways that they get the substances into the country, Dr. Phil. I mean, they're sending shipments directly into America. They have containers. They have chemicals that are in Canada, for an example, that make its way into America. There's so many ways to get the chemicals here, but they're diverting. It's not just directly to Mexico, because that's too obvious, right? So they're very smart. They're very clever. They'll use all avenues. They'll send it to other countries in Central America or South America, and it'll make its way to the labs in Mexico. But again, going back to these nitazene class of drugs, which we started seeing coming in around 2019, those are coming in my view, most of them are coming in directly in the mail services from China directly. We have customers in America that are ordering up these chemicals, and then they're shipping them right to their locations. There was a case in South Florida last year. I'm very familiar with this because my buddy was the case agent from DEA, and it was a South Florida man who wasn't a cartel member, was importing protonitazene directly from China into the country and then distributing it. So it was a great case with DEA, IRS, Postal Service, and they exposed this. But there's many more cases like this that are happening. This is something that's evolving now. And once again, Dr. Phil, our lawmakers are too busy worrying about the politics of shutting down America instead of enacting new laws to close some of these loopholes. Like, it's a joke that it took all these years to get the whole Fentanyl Act passed. Like, thank God President Trump finally passed it and then held an event at the White House with the families who greatly appreciated his gesture. But that should have been passed many years ago. It's whack-a-mole. You can't keep up with the production of these different substances, and it's all chemical engineering. It's all strategic. It's all by design. So we have to come up with updated strategies. Otherwise, we're going to continue to chase it. But most importantly, Dr. Phil, I would be remiss to not make this comment. We have to start the robust education systems in the schools, to the parents, to the students. It has to be mandatory, and it has to be updated. We have to do the social media reels. You were nice enough to do a reel with me back in the day, in your studio, which I
Right.
love, and thank you very much. But we need everybody out there that cares about our country, that have a huge following, hundreds of millions of followers, to get out there and do some reels on social media sites. That's where the kids are going to get the message. No disrespect to mainstream media, cable news, podcasts. The kids are not watching this stuff and listening to this. They're watching social media reels all day long. So we got to educate them where they're at. This is not too complicated to understand, but we can't recruit the right celebrities and influencers that have the kids' attention. So this is a big thing that we need, because we're not going to be able to arrest the way out of this. And we also need mental illness services. Of course, these kids are turning to drugs for help, because you can't go get help because it's so damn expensive. There's no oversight over the treatment centers. It's like they take cash from these families who are poor to begin with, many of them, and then the kid doesn't get any help. So when are we going to get some oversight on those treatment centers and get the kids the education that they need? This is a sense of urgency that I have. I'm working with the incoming ONDCP director, who's very, very passionate about this stuff, and we're going to start some education campaigns very soon.
Well, you can count on me for that, and you and I should make new videos constantly to be putting up on all the social media platforms, and I can recruit others to join us in doing that. But we should be reaching out to these kids all the time.